Welcome to Cottage Talk. I am Russ Goldman. Joining me right now is Emilio Danello, who's my co-host, and I have two very special guests. I've got our new friend here, Russ, who's a supporter of Brighton Hove Albion, and then I got my good friend Andy Carlton, who is a supporter of West Bromwich Albion. This episode, we're going to talk about the relegation battle that all three of our sides are dealing with and our thoughts on it. So before we go on any further, I just want to introduce everyone to the show. First, Emilio, thank you for joining me on this special episode.
Hi there. Hi, guys. Nice to have you, Russell, Andy, on the show tonight. Yeah, it was just good timing, this show. Fulham have got Brighton and West Brom back-to-back in the next few days. And it's just, all three teams are facing an uphill battle to survive in the Premier League. But, who's going to go down? Amongst ourselves? There's going to be one or two of our clubs are going to be in the likely mix of getting relegated this season. So, yeah, I just want to talk with our colleagues here and get a supporter's perspective, a genuine, honest perspective. Yep. In line with that, we've got these big games coming up. I'm actually looking forward to tonight.
So am I. Mr. Carlton, how are you doing? Andy is a good friend of mine. We've been friends on Twitter for a long time. We've done a couple of shows together. Andy, how are you doing?
Yeah, great. It's looking forward to tomorrow. Got Man City at home. I'm sure. Actually, it's quite funny because I don't know if you know this, but Pep Guardiola described Sam as a genius today.
Really?
Yeah.
Interesting.
So hoping that geniality will come out tomorrow. Right? We'll see where it goes.
Okay. Well, I'll get your thoughts on Allardyce in just a bit. Russell, this is going to be interesting because I'm Russ, you're Russell. We're going to go with that for this show. This is the first time that we've done multiple Russells on a show. And as Emilio said to me off air, there are going to be plenty of Goldmans. And Russell, just so you know what a Goldman is, that's a mistake that we call on a show. That's my last name. So I'm expecting several of them, but I want to welcome you to the show. Thank you for joining us tonight.
Thanks very much. And I'll stay as a Russell just to avoid confusion there, Russ. No problem at all.
Okay, fantastic. Okay, well, listen, let's get going. And Russell, I'm going to start with you. I want to get your thoughts on what was going through your mind before the season began, your prediction for Brighton Hove Albion. Let's start there before we talk about where we all are. Let's talk about what were your thoughts before the season began?
I think pretty modest. I think it's year-on-year progression, and we've got a big picture plan, really, this Albion. Sorry, I've got to confuse things now with the West Brom side of it. But yeah, we're building year-on-year, and we had, after Houghton, where we had a more boring style of football, under Graham Potter in his first year, we did quite well, but we struggled a bit, and we took a while getting over the line. So for me, it was going to be a minor improvement, was what I thought we were going for there. I was expecting, where we finished just a couple of places to safety, I was thinking maybe something around 13th, 14th that we were capable of getting. But ultimately, as always, if you're a bottom half of table club, as we are at the moment and have been since we've been in the Prem, it's really just a matter of getting over that first line, which is proverbially the 40-point mark, isn't it? So, right. So really, that's all I was making sure of, or wanted to make sure of. But I was thinking around, say about 14th, I think was 14th? The figure I had in my head. Yeah. Okay,
excellent. Andy, your club came up with my club from the championship. So before the season began, I don't remember if I asked you, what was your prediction for West Bromwich Albion?
Depends. You want my heart or my head? There's two different answers.
Give us both.
Heart, yeah. I wanted us to stay up. Head, no. We limped over the line. We absolutely got in by default. If you remember, Barnsley beat.
I remember.
Brentford on that crazy run. Think of the players they had. The Villa boy, the guy at West Ham now. They had a great squad, and they're doing well this season. But you managed to beat them in the playoffs. And so pre-season for West Brom, it was like, can we strengthen? Bilic has its European connections that worked getting last year. Some decent players like Pereira. Hasn't worked out at all. Since then, we've won two out of 24 games. And so it's just not a good recipe. Transfer-wise, he's not made decisions. The board have made decisions above him. He's got players that he didn't want, so very expensive players. He's lost players he wanted to keep. The unity of the team sort of disappears with the unity of the support of the board backing Bilic. it's not been good. And so, I'll be honest with you, the game that really swung it for me was the Fulham game.
Okay.
When we were both, in the bottom three at your place. And it was like, can we kick on? Have we the ability? We looked loose. We looked limp. We looked weak physically, mentally. And Fulham looked so much stronger. And that 2-0 defeat for me, that was it. That was when the writing for me was really on the wall. Are we good enough? And we're just not good enough. I think it's simple as that.
Okay, very good. All right. Emilio, over to you. I know we've probably done this prior, but what were your thoughts? I think you've said what I've said, just 17th.
Yeah, absolutely. My objective was, stay in the division. I don't get how we stayed there as long as we stay in the division. I remember we did a show straight after the playoff final against Brentford while everyone else was getting drunk, celebrating. I was being a little bit more.
He was worrying already then.
Already about next season. I was always saying we haven't got enough strikers. Where are the goals going to come from? We can't have that defence. I was already worrying about how many points we'll pick up this season. So for me, it was all about
this
17.
was that night.
That was that night, the night of the Brentford Cup final win at Wembley. I was already worried about the Premier League season. So, expectations were 17, nothing more than that. Stay in the division and do what Aston Villa did last year. Manage to survive and kick on the second season. The moment, are we where I expected us to be? Broadly, I expected us to be in the bottom three. We're there. Do we have a chance to survive? Yes, we do. Yeah, so we've improved. If we carried on playing like we did those first 3 or 4 games of the season, we'd be rock bottom, worse than Sheffield United. So thankfully, there's been some good investments, some good players. Now we've got to start learning how to win games and convert those draws into wins. But I'm hopeful. But it's going to be I think all three of us are going to have a challenging 3 months ahead of us, 3 or 4 months. I think we've got 2 of us, I think, are going to go down realistically, at least 1, if not 2. So it'll be interesting to see what you guys. Obviously, Andy, you're more pessimistic than Russell. I'm reasonably optimistic, but it'd be good to just have this open conversation tonight.
Okay, excellent. And that's going to get right to what we're going to talk about. We're getting right into it, guys. So, Russell, I'll go to you first. Here it is. Will your team survive? And if so, who will go down instead? Now, Emilio's going with the idea that it could be potentially 2. I'm thinking 1, but it's up to you. Will your team survive? Do you think they'll survive? And if so, who will go down instead? So it could be a combination. I strongly feel that Sheffield United will be one of those teams. Could it also be Newcastle United? Could it be Burnley? Could they be part of the mix? But I'm curious how you feel about this, and then I'll go to Andy.
Yeah, it's a really tough call, isn't it? I mean, I certainly agree with you about Sheffield United. There's too much ground to make up there. Any of us could finish below them. If we do, we're in big trouble anyway. So I think it's going to be, unfortunately for Andy, I do think West Brom will slip. Looking at last season, I agree with what you said, just getting over the line. When you look at the disparity between the divisions, I think it's such a chasm now.
Oh, it is.
You have to look at what Wolves did when they went up and think, I felt confident they would stay up. I felt confident we'd stay up because of how convincingly we got promoted more than anything. I wasn't sure, but I felt we had a chance. And I did, looking at you guys, in fact, both sides, I thought there's going to have to be some improvements to stay in. So I have to say it's not looking great for either side. I do think we're going to survive it. Looking at the table at the moment, 5 clear, you've got a game in hand for them, haven't you? And then West Brom another point behind. I do think we'll survive, not necessarily to do what you're going to do, but I think we'll just get the necessary points to get there. What I do think is that Newcastle, who you mentioned, I tipped quite a few weeks ago as the dark horse go down. Whenever I've seen them, they've looked terrible, to be honest.
Horrible.
And they don't play a great brand of football, but they're not playing with confidence. And if they've got Callum Wilson not firing or not getting the service or getting injured, they've really got nothing there. We've now seen them get into free fall, and I mean they're only 2 ahead of us, but they're 7 clear of you guys, Fulham. But if you win your game in hand over them, that gap goes down. And there's a long way. We're halfway through, aren't we, at the moment? My tip, and this is the best way of putting it, is I've gone for a Sheffield United, West Brom, Newcastle triple for a relegation bet, which is I'm sorry to say for Andy, because don't wish relegation on anyone, obviously, but I do think it's a step too far for Sam this time, should we say?
Okay, Andy, over to you. Your thoughts? I think you kind of let it known already, but will your team survive? And if so, who will go down instead? Russell's already given his 3. Who are your 3?
Well, if we're going to stay up, next 8 games, we've got to play Fulham, Sheffield United, Brighton, Burnley, Newcastle, and Crystal Palace. So if ever you need a new manager bounce, this is it. We've got to win 4 or 5. We have to win that many games. I think this year the number of points is going to be less than it's ever been to stay up. So that, in a sense, that's good for all of us, those key games. With momentum's everything. I mean, I'm writing us off because we've only won 2 games this season. Shockingly, the same as Fulham. I mean, that is remarkable, I thought. I didn't realise you only won 2 as well. So if we get that part of the game right, who knows what Allardyce is going to pick up in the window. Now, I'm writing us off now. If he gets Chowdhury, that's the guy I want from Leicester. There's a lot of good players at West Brom, but there's a lot of weaknesses as well. If he irons out the weaknesses, I think that would be a really good signing. Benteke's been on the cards as well. Could he lead a line with good players around him? He's not a top prolific goal scorer, but he could be a threat playing like a 4-5-1. So I'm saying we're going down, but we'll know for sure once this window closes, or we'll know better in terms of who's going down. Sheffield United played better than we did. That's one of our wins this season. We squeezed a 1-0 against them. They're going down. Obviously, I've got to. We'll see. The other one, Russell's right. It's between I believe it's between Newcastle and Brighton. Actually, sorry, I see Fulham kicking on.
Really?
I really do. Yeah, I think
you're welcome back anytime, Andy.
No, honestly, I think every time I've seen you play, you've got physicality, you've got a United team, the manager, you have pace. Mitrovic is going to wake up one day and start scoring. Defensively solid. Got a great keeper. I mean, come on, he's the best keeper in the bottom 6 by a mile.
He is a great keeper. I will say that.
So as a recipe, I had no idea. We're still only 1 point behind you. Yep. So I'm confident. If I was a Fulham fan, I think you're going to kick on.
Oh.
We've got to possibly, rein you in. We've got to beat you next go. With the Hawthorns, and then get above you, and then get maybe a fear factor in Parker. But if you're really asking me who's going down, being honest, I'd say ourselves. I'd say Sheffield United, and the third one, I'm going to say Brighton.
Oh, interesting. Mm-hmm. Russell, back over to you. Your thoughts on what Andy just shared there, because I wasn't expecting him to say Brighton. And it's 4 points. And what's interesting about your side, and maybe we can get into this because I want to talk about the managers. I want to go back and talk to Andy about Allardyce. And I also want to get Emilio involved, but I want to go back to you. I want to get your thoughts on this, on what he just shared about he thinks that Brighton is. Do you feel that there's just too much experience there and Potter has enough to get you over the line? Russell?
Yes. I think he is not that experienced, but he's a reasonable amount. I think more it's a case of we're in a weird one, really, because we've stepped on in terms of the way we play a lot more than I thought we would. We play with a lot of confidence, quite an open brand of football. What we have done is we've squandered a lot of chances, but our scoring isn't too bad if you look at the stats in terms of the number of goals. But what it is when we score, we just can't keep the ball out the other net. That's the problem. What we've done is we've had some reasonable results against all of the teams outside of our general area in the table, but we failed to beat any of the teams around us. As you guys will know, we've had draws against both of you.
Yes.
The West Brom game being a home match, of course, for us as well. Sheffield United, we gave them only their second point of the season when we played them only a few weeks ago. That was, again, it was a classic case of us not being able to put to bed a team that we're clearly going to set up to defend from the beginning. Burnley, we played well again there, but didn't get the result. Wolves, we came back and got a good result there. But Palace, away from home, our arch rivals, they were really terrible that day. And unfortunately, we only got a draw. What happened there was that they were gifted a goal, a ridiculous penalty decision. And we've had a mixture of bad luck like that, but also we've made some bad luck for ourselves. We're not finishing teams off in games where we have been on top. So I feel our position in one sense is false. That's why I'm confident. I think we will at some point step on and be able to hit a run of games. But all the time that we keep not doing that, it's just empty talk, just as when the manager says we've got to learn and step on. And, it's a case of, are we actually going to do that in the end? I could see us, we're capable of stringing a run of results together, I think, and I think we will at some point. That's why I think we'll be okay. But I can understand why we'd be tagged as one of the teams that can go down because, well, we're right down there, aren't we, at the moment?
Right.
You win your game in hand, we're 2 points off relegation again. So, it's going to be a tough one. I wouldn't write it off, put it that way, but I'm hoping that I'm right, that we're going to survive.
Okay, before I go to Amelia, I want to go back to you because, again, Andy already kind of told us what he feels that his team needs. He was talking about Benteke, obviously bringing in a striker. Fulham definitely need that as well. We'll talk about that in a bit. I'm sure Amelia will chime in on that. You were just talking about the situation with Brighton Hove Albion, but is there a need? Is there a need in the window? What does your team need to survive, to get over the line?
Well, we've had a problem trying to get the right sort of striker for a number of years. We've brought in people like Neil Maupay who fit a role within the club, and they're learning the trade still at that level they're now at, having done well for Brentford in the Championship. But we haven't really got the traditional centre forward that could fill that role when needed. And I think we don't play normally with two strike partners as such. We play with a 10 or we play with two wide attackers, and then we don't really have a striker as such, and I do think that is a void in the squad. I don't think we're necessarily going to fill that though, because we've got a lot of forward players, and I think we're playing quite a transigent sort of way of playing, and we're flexible, we're moving things around, and I think he might make do with what he's got. I've got a hunch, but I would ideally like to see another striker in there. Particularly somebody of the Callum, we mentioned Callum Wilson, somebody of that sort of stature, who's feasible, but actually step things on for us.
Okay, excellent. Emilio, over to you. I want to get your three teams, but I also want you to chime in on this because I think Andy and Russell have actually talked about something that I think you and I know very well. It sounds like both sides, and this is not a shocker, need a striker. Fulham need a striker. We've talked about that for how long, but I want to get your thoughts going back to our discussion here. Who are your three teams?
Well, I think Sheffield United, I predicted before the season, I think we did a pre-match show, didn't we? Pre-season show, Russ, and I predicted Sheffield United would get relegated, so I'm not surprised to see them there, and after they had a pretty good season last year. I don't think West Brom going down is a given either, to be honest. If you take, I think they will. But you went to Wolves a week or so ago, and I thought you deservedly won that game that day. So Allardyce has in still prominence. Is that the game that's got the ship sailing again down the right pathway? So I don't think it's a given that you're going to go down. But I think the key thing from our perspective, being selfish here, is we've got these two critical games coming up on Wednesday and Saturday.
Yes,
we've got to win them both. I know it goes without saying. Win those both. Brighton are back in the mix. And we distance ourselves from West Brom. And I expect maybe, Andy, that you'll lose to Manchester City. You got a great result at their ground before Christmas, and deservedly so, before Village back that night. But I think Man City are on a great run of form, and you've got that winning mentality after beating Wolves. That's what I'm worried. Fulham need to convert these good performances that we keep going on about, these draws, get hard-earned draws and well-deserved draws, into victories. Burnley have pushed on. Look at Burnley. They struggled for goals, but they know how to win 1-0. Those 1-0s are enough to push them away from that relegation zone. I've always said Burnley have got too much at home. I think their home form will keep them up. I think that traditionally they're difficult to beat at Turf Moor, and I think they will push on. I think they've had a great result at Anfield. So for me, I think we will go down, Andy. I'll be honest with you, but I think you'll fight. Our lives will fight right to the death. So I don't think you're going to be too far behind. As much as I'd love to see Newcastle get relegated, everyone who follows me knows how much I hate Newcastle. And
I know how much you do.
We've got them at the last game of the season at home, and it would be
lovely.
Right. That was a game. Wow. A, we're safe, but B, we can condemn them to relegation. That would make my life. Basically. we relegated Newcastle when
we survived
temporary charge many years ago. That gave me a lot of pleasure. So hopefully we'll do the same. But I'm not sure. I think they will change their manager at some point, and I think they will. I think they will push on. I actually got an allegiance towards Brighton. Russell, just let you know, my wife's from just down the road from Brighton. I've got a property in Brighton. I love the place, and I don't want them to go down because I want Fulham and Brighton to stay up. But clearly, if Fulham would stay up at the expense of Brighton, it's disappointing, but I'll have to take it. But realistically, I think Brighton will go down. I think this is the end of the year. I think you struggled under Houghton. Well, I thought you did well under Houghton, and I was very critical of the board sacking Houghton to take a Potter. You did well last year, good brand of football, but I don't think you've pushed on. You're feeling like a bit like a Sheffield United second year syndrome under a new manager. I think you're struggling, and I don't see where your goals are going to come from unless you invest in a striker. Your home form is a bit poor, so hopefully we could take advantage of that on Wednesday night and certainly get a result there. So I actually think you'll go down, unfortunately, this year. I think at the expense of Fulham, honestly. I don't want you to go down, but I'd rather Brighton than Fulham, put it that way.
Russell, Emilio is conflicted. Let's just say he's conflicted, but Fulham come first. I certainly understand that. And what's interesting about our conversations, we're going to get all into this because this is very interesting to get everyone's thoughts on what's going through your mind about relegation. And we've really honed in on the players, but we've also honed in on the managers. That's where I want to go next. So we're going to focus on the three managers. And then after that, I'm going to ask you a question. Which manager would you want out of the three managers we're going to talk about to survive? Which manager out of Parker, Potter, and Allardyce would you want? And we'll get to that. We'll get to that. I'll ask that in just a second because I think that's an interesting topic. But I want to start with you, Russell. Thoughts on Graham Potter? And what's interesting is I remember a couple seasons ago we had on a Brighton Hove Albion supporter who could not say enough good things about Chris Hughton. Chris Hughton represented everything that was good about Brighton Hove Albion. They still sacked him. So what are your thoughts about going away from Houghton, coming in with Potter, and as Emilio said, now it's second year and struggling a little bit?
Yeah, he's sort of split opinion a little bit. But what we've got at Brighton, unfortunately, is we've got quite a few what I call bedwetter fans who do kind of throw the toys out the pram and panic very quickly and very early. So there's quite a few of those people who have got onto Potter's back a bit. Obviously, with no fans in stadiums, that's less of an issue than it might have been. I'm not sure how vocal they would have been at games, but certainly in social media they are. I'm very much in the Potter camp. I think he's a good manager. I think he's got potential, and he's on a journey of development, personal development himself, as well as the team under him. So I'm very much in the Potter camp. I honestly would stick with him rather than twisting, as far as your other questions coming later on. But just because I think there's a project of work here, that there's a big picture, both for him and what he's trying to do, but also beyond that, what the club is trying to do. I think I would stick with him for two reasons. One, because I think we will improve our form in the second half of the year in terms of results. And either way, even if we don't, I think he's a good long-term option. I think to do a Norwich City, dare I say it, a Sean Dyche at Burnley in terms of the bounce-back ability factor, maybe not boing, as Andy would know the expression well. I don't know what you would call it, but something along those lines. I think he would be the man to take us back up, ironically, even if he did take us down, because there's a project with development with young players coming in, and I think he's very good with the young players. And on that basis, I would certainly stick with him this season and probably beyond.
Okay, but as you said, and this is interesting, the supporters are split on him.
Yeah, for the reason that was mentioned, I think it was by Emilio just now about stepping on. I think it's perceived because of the position we're in, the number of points we've got, that we haven't stepped on. I think we've improved a lot of what we do, but what I agree with in terms of not stepping on is actually during the season, which is that we've had the same story all through the year, played a lot of good football, didn't take our chances, conceding a lot of goals just before half-time. That's another little trait of ours. We did have an issue with the set pieces in both boxes. That's broadly speaking improved now. But the other issues remain. And it's a case, as I said earlier, if we can break out of that and avoid that pattern continuing. As it stands, though, I'd agree that we haven't stepped on yet. I just feel, my hunch is that we will do under him. I think he knows what he's doing. I think we've suffered from a mixture of things. He's doing a lot of rotation of the team, and that's where a lot of the debate is with fans saying that we've maybe done too much of that. And I think that probably has disrupted the flow a bit. But I do think that if we can get through this phase, having done so, we've then got a stronger, broader squad to work from in the second half of the year, if it works.
Okay,
So,
excellent.
Yeah.
Very good stuff. Andy, over to you. Let's talk about Sam Allardyce. And I don't know if I've asked you this, but I definitely want your thoughts on Bilic getting sacked, because I have been a fan of his, and I was actually disappointed that he got the sack because I thought he deserved to stay on. So I want to get your thoughts on the move to Sam Allardyce, which is very different, I think, from what you have with Bilic. And you know what you're going to get with Allardyce. I wouldn't want Allardyce. I understand why your club brought him in. So what are your thoughts?
Well, you can't get much similar opposites, can you? You know, from Bilic to Sam.
That's what I'm saying.
So, with Bilic, he started well at West Brom. It certainly plateaued, certainly went down. You know, we were level with Leeds, you know, as in them, and you were way behind, and Brentford were way behind. Yeah. In all COVID, I mean, who knows? You know, that break in the season didn't help, and we didn't come back as a better team. Certainly in the Premier League, you can see we're lacking sort of fitness levels. Yep. You can see we're lacking sort of physicality. He signed a lot of flair players. It's not great when you said before the board go against you. It's not a good message.
No.
I think one interesting comment when Bilic got sacked was one of the players mentioned, I think Charlie Austin was saying, it was like a mate. You know, the manager was like a mate rather than a boss. And so whether that's the right background to be a manager in the Premier League is questionable. I'm sure Sam's no one's mate. I mean, he has not got that sort of that side to him. What he brings, I mean, the first 3 home games we had under Sam, no goals scored, 12 conceded. So, this is reality. But then the Wolves game, he had no breaks in terms of working with the team. You know, it's all fast fixtures, Christmas fixtures thrown at you, international breaks. So with Allardyce, you need a system, you need a training ground, you need organisation. And with Sammy Lee Barkin as well, you saw more of that against Wolves. And we still haven't seen our strongest 11 because Gallagher missed the Wolves game. He was our best midfield player, the guy from Chelsea. So once he's in there as well, you're going to start seeing more of a balanced team. Pereira's behind me has now refound his form, signed his contract. So the signs of the training, the better preparation is going to come through in the next few weeks.
Okay.
He's not my perfect manager. I liked him at Bolton. I like a mixture of flair, with a Cottage, with Jorkieff, those sort of players. So he can work with flair players. So I'm hoping he gets that at Pereira as well. But certainly we can't fold. We've folded in games, conceding really quick goals. Also with Allardyce in charge. So the leadership on the pitch. Snodgrass looks a great signing.
I would agree. For you guys, absolutely.
When is available? I mean, West Ham fiasco, that was a real curveball. So best to not mention that anymore. But he's a good, he made a great first debut. So again, this January window when no one's moving, none of our clubs sign anybody. No, whether it's the money through COVID and through turnstile, you're not coming through. It's the quietest January window, so we might be left with what we've got.
Okay,
but we'll see. Obviously. He wins games, you love him. He lose, you lose patience. But he has a record for staying up, so we'll see.
He does,
Andy. I can ask a question at this point as well to Andy. Yeah,
absolutely.
Because, I mean, a lot of the media were saying that when Slaven Bilic was sacked, it was a bit harsh on the basis that you weren't underachieving. You were probably about where you were expected to be. Whereas when Sam Allardyce has taken over previous jobs, they've been teams that have underperformed and he's turned it around. Are you worried that isn't a thing that can be done to that degree with this team in a short space of time? And do you think it was harsh overall? Because I think I felt it was. I think he was doing a decent job on fairly limited resources.
Yeah, I mean, Bilic, it come out of left field. I mean, typical West Brom, right? Been waiting for a good performance, waiting for the players to play for him. He does it versus City. Then finds out in the coach on the way back. I mean, it was horrific and it was unfair. But again, I expected a little bit more in terms of recruitment, with his connections. The balance of the squad is way off. They're all smooth, technically beautiful players. But
can they play for him? That's my question for you, because we ran into that with Ranieri. Can these players who are built to play under Bilic play for Allardyce, meaning style-wise?
Well, he's got rid of a few. He's already made, players go out on loan and he's released players, on loan, to championship teams, which really shows you where those players are and why we can't, kick on in the Premier League. These are lads that Premier League teams don't really want. Some are young, some need game time for sure. But no, I think for Allardyce, it wasn't a bad time to come in. We just got that result. So there was a proof that the team can play together. But it's knitting it week in, week out, which with Allardyce, with Bilic, it was a longer run of games, Russell, where things were poor. They team beat with Sheffield United. And we're going back way before, looking at, June before a victory, another victory. So it wasn't an overnight dip. It was a gradual decline. What the board thought, is it going to go further? And I can see both sides. I really can. I think it was cruel timing. I think it was what they thought about. They predicted we'd lose to City heavily, right? That was the notion. You're going to lose, get dicked, and then you can get rid of him. Now we're in a situation. Sam's been asked. He said yes. We've still got to follow through. And that's what happened, I think.
And I think the point as well to add as well. We've had this debate, Russ, haven't we, many times. What's more important, survival or brand of football?
Survival, Emilio.
For me, 100%. I want to stay in the top division, and I want to play in the top division. Even we were having this debate last season.
Yep.
Parker, he was top 6. I had fans around me at the Craven Cottage. 50% wanted Parker out. 50% give him time.
Oh, it was split. There's no question about it.
Can't keep sacking managers as long as we get promoted and we stay in the Premier League. And then we push on. Then that's where the test comes. Change your brand of football if you can't push on. But for me, if Sam Allardyce is going to keep my team in the Premier League, I don't care how we play as long as he keeps me in the Premier League. And when we got relegated, 5-6 years ago, I remember I was saying I got from a reliable source at the club that Fulham were interviewing for Sam Allardyce when we were in the Championship.
I remember this.
He was very close to being offered the job. I'll be honest with you. I'm not going to say where the source came from. He was very close to the job. Everyone I spoke to were against that. And I said, but look how many years it took us to get promoted.
Yep.
Without Allardyce. So if he meant Allardyce brand of football and promotion, I'd take that because I want to get promoted. I don't want to stay in the Championship and watch attractive football, win 5-4, win 4-3. I want to play against the big boys. So,
and that's a great topic. And I want to go back to you, Russell, because you've had a little bit of both. You've had Houghton, you've had now Potter, you've had different styles. How do you feel about what Emilio just shared? Is it just about staying in the league, or is it about how you play? It's an interesting way to look at it, because I see where Emilio's coming from. He just wants to survive. He wants to stay in the Premier League. Brighton's in a little bit different situation because they've been now in the league for a while. Where do you fall on that?
Yeah, it's a really interesting question, isn't it? And it's a difficult one to answer. You probably get different answers from various different people who watch the same football. So other Albion fans, Brighton fans would say completely different. Sorry, complete confusion with the Albions. Would say completely different things. For me, I've got to be honest and say I think the football is important, the way we play. Whether I want to go down at the expense of that, I'm not sure. It's a difficult one. But
it's a hard balance.
Yeah, I mean, when we got promoted under Houghton, it was a decent enough brand of football, and we got promoted. And then there was a bit more of a rudimentary style to the way we played in the first season, which I think everyone was fine with. And in the second season, people were getting a little bit kind of irky about it, but they were happy with it until it started to go pear-shaped in the second half of the season, and we ended up only just surviving. And I think the problem there was then it was poor football, and it wasn't winning football either. And that's why I think the tide turned on Chris. In terms of Graham, based on what I said before, really, I think if we went down, I think we would continue to play good football, and I would be confident we could come back. Maybe not straight away, I don't know, but we would keep on the same trajectory and we would come back up. So I'd be happy for us to stick to this style of football. I wouldn't want to compromise that. I wouldn't want
That's
to.
Interesting because that was my thoughts, Russell, with Savica Jokanovic. I never wanted them to sack Jokanovic because I wanted them to keep the same style. But Emilio's on the other side of it, which is interesting. All he cared well, not I shouldn't say that, Emilio. Of course, you want good football, but for him, it was more important to stay in the division. I'm thinking stick with Slavica, whether we get relegated or not. So I can understand where you're going on that. That's why it's an interesting topic. Andy, where do you fall on this? And again, because you're dealing with two completely different managers in the span of the season, is it really just about survival for you?
Well, you didn't watch during the Pulis years. I'm so used to this. But we had a really good team of international, solid, experienced who worked into a system. Eventually, players, it's hard for players just to deny expression and just focus on organisation. But we did well under Pulis. I mean, don't get
you did.
So, it was a tough watch. It was tough to deny good players, that platform to play, in an expressive way. But hey, if it works, it works. I think we all want the happy medium. I think we all want,
exactly.
Sort of survive with a bit of flair, but also have organisational nous against some of the bigger teams and maybe get a shock or two. But yeah, it's a grey area. I think Sam, you need more time. But say he has proven he can play with a bit of flair at times. The Wolves game looked good. Snodgrass, say, he's a progressive player. He hasn't signed another centre half. He's looking for somebody who can actually, dead ball. He can motivate. He can create. So we'll see where it goes. But yeah, it's definitely a hard, sort of question to answer.
It is, and it's a great topic for all of us because we're all dealing with the situation of relegation, and we're talking about what's more important. Is it survival? Is it style of play? Is it a happy medium? I think we'd all would want a happy medium. But I understand where Emilio's going on that. And Emilio, that's going to lead us to talk about Scott Parker with you. Now, we've talked about Scott Parker several times. But since we've now talked about the other two managers, I'm curious now. We've had a lot of time, and I've talked to you several times about Parker. Where do you stand right now as we're dealing with the relegation battle? It's funny. I don't hear any pressure on Parker.
No.
I understand it. I totally understand because I feel that there shouldn't be.
Yeah.
But others from the outside could say, well, wait a minute. Why isn't he under any pressure, Emilio? So what are your thoughts on Parker?
Yeah, for the benefit of Russell and Andy, when he got the job a couple of years, I wasn't an advocate of Scott Parker.
Neither was I.
Neither of us. Remember, we did a show on that day, and neither of us were inspired by his signing. But you can't keep sacking managers. Even last season, when I think we were underachieving with the players that we had at times. But Scott Parker plays in a certain brand of football. And when I met him about 15 months ago, we had an open conversation about brand of football, style of football. And this is his philosophy. This is the brand of football he wants to play. And he's not going to change that, whether you're winning or you're losing. So, but to be honest, as I said, you can't keep sacking managers every season. I was telling the guys around us, the only way he's going to get sacked is if Fulham don't make the playoffs at least. He got the playoffs. He won the playoffs. He's in the Premier League. And to be honest, he's winning plaudits from a lot of neutrals. To be honest,
yes.
So to be honest, would I change? I wouldn't change for Sam Allardyce. And to be honest, I think Graham Potter and Scott Parker are very similar. And I agree. I think if we were to get relegated, I don't think Parker will get sacked. I think Parker will season to try to get a bit like Russell said with Brighton. So I think he's a young manager. We're not going to do what Frank Lampard, what happened to Frank Lampard today at Chelsea, get sacked. Another young manager who's bitten the dust at the so-called big club. But I wouldn't change. I think let Scott Parker continue his philosophy, his brand of football. There's potential there. We've tightened up at the back. We've got some good goalkeeper like Andy mentioned. We've got solid central defenders now. If we can get that striker who can convert these half chances and these chances into goals, then we can push on. But ask me the same question in a week's time when we've played Brighton and West Brom. I might have a different answer, but these are 2 6-pointers, massive games for us, and these will define our season. If Brighton win, you got 8 points ahead of us. That's 3 games. I'd rather have the points on the board than the games in hand.
Okay.
And West Brom, again, you'll overtake us if you beat us on Saturday. We're rock bottom in the bottom 2. So massive 5 days coming up, but I think we've got enough. There's enough winnable games for us. I wouldn't change the manager.
Yeah, neither would I.
Let him push on. Let him play his philosophy. Give him the reinforcements he needs. And if we get relegated, persevere with him. You've got to persevere with him. You can't. I don't believe in sacking managers all the time. I know what he's trying to do. It doesn't always attract the best feedback from supporters, but from a neutral's perspective, he can't do more than that. Yeah. He's trying to play a classy brand of football. Our possession rates are very good, and the only thing that lets us down is our ratio of goals for chances. We can address that. then I will push on. But it's a big if.
It is a big if, Emilio, but I'm there with you, and I wouldn't sack him. I would keep him, and it's just, it's interesting. There's no talk on that, and I just thought I'd bring it up, and that's a testament to him because he has shown this confidence, and everyone has bought into what the club is doing, and that might also be why, Andy, you feel strongly about Fulham as well, because you see what we're doing here, and it does start with Parker, so Parker deserves a lot of credit, but that's going to lead to a very interesting topic. And then we'll get in and we'll get into talk about the next couple of Fulham matches and some predictions from you guys. So here it is. Russell, I'm going to ask you, which manager would you want to help your club survive out of the three managers of our clubs? Would it be Graham Potter? Would it be Scott Parker? Would it be Sam Allardyce?
I think with the players we've got, I would say Graham Potter. I think he would. I'm confident in him. So on that basis, I wouldn't want to change either and disrupt the flow. So stick with what we've got and carry on trying to progress on the same format.
Okay, excellent. Andy, how about you? This is an interesting one because you've got three interesting choices, and you just brought in Allardyce. Would you, again, if you had your choice between Parker, Potter, and Allardyce, which one would you go with if you were in charge? I'm putting you in charge of West Bromwich Albion. You are the owner.
Wow. Well, a hybrid of all three would be pretty good, actually. I think they all have strength,
Yeah.
So, So I do like Scott Parker. I like his manner. I like his sort of. He just has a certain air about him that I really trust. And Aga Parker. I mean, I sound like I'm stabbing some in the back, but then again, Scott's unproven, isn't he? So if he's under real pressure, how will he react? Allardyce has had years of experience. So I see it's tricky. That's such a hard question, Russ. I say Parker because I do like the character, but Allardyce, in the trenches, he has strengths as well.
Okay.
I think they're probably the best options for each club are probably in those clubs at the moment.
Yeah.
Ultimately.
Right.
One thing I'll say for Scott Parker is he looks like he's just walked out of a clothing catalogue as well, which I quite like. He's got an old style to him.
Oh, he's a styling guy. There's no question about that. Emilio, I'm going to end with you with this because I don't think I actually asked you this. Who would you pick?
Yeah, I'd keep who we've got, to be honest. And I think the thing that's worth raising, I remember before Parker got the job, I remember Mike Gregg, one of our fellow co-hosts, he was actually a big advocate of Graham Potter, I recall.
I remember this.
I remember that. Yeah. We were asking who would he fancy. He was disappointed when Graham Potter took the Brighton job and was doing well in the Premier League. And I remember that one of our co-hosts on the show was always saying, we lost an opportunity there. But for Scott Parker, he's done the job he was asked to do. His job last season was to get promoted. He done that. Many of the fans who wanted him out last season, you ask them the question again now, they're probably turned. Their views have changed. Not because they love Scott Parker. They can see he's trying to do the best for the club and he loves the club. You can see that there's passion there with the club. He's proud of being the manager of the club. And to be honest, I think the owners love him as well. They see this as a future manager, a bit like yourself, Russell. This is a project. I see this as being a project. He's got good football brain. Jokanovic, to be honest, I was never his biggest advocate when he got the job, but I loved the brand of football he played. But we were shocking when we got relegated. He lost the dressing room. He lost that squad of players. It was the right thing to let him go. Unfortunately, Ranieri didn't work out. I see Scott Parker a lot different. Younger, enjoys football, good pedigree, and he's the future. We don't go sacking these young managers. Give these young managers. And that's why I think I agree with you. You'll keep Potter if you get relegated, and we'll keep Parker if we get relegated as well.
Yeah, because they're young and progressive, and I think there's time to grow, isn't there? There's a lot in common between the two managers.
Absolutely,
absolutely.
The manager I wanted, Russell, was Nigel Pearson. That's the one I wanted.
Really?
Yeah. Well, if you get him, you win the title the following year.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah, but his health has really suffered with COVID. He's really having a rough time with it. He's got long-term effects. Yeah.
Oh, really?
Sad story. Yeah. So he would be my number one choice, but there's no way physically he can do the job.
Okay.
Yeah, he's a good manager, Pearson. He's not bad. It would have been a good choice if he was available. Yeah.
Okay, great stuff, guys. I got another curveball for you before we end the show with predictions. Here's one, because I want you to take a good look at your players, okay? I'm going to start with you, Andy. Which club's players would you want to help your club survive out of the three clubs here? Would you go with the team you currently have? Would you take West Brom? Would you take, I'm sorry, there's a Goldman. Would you take Brighton's club or would you take Fulham's club? Would you stick with the players you have? If you could pick one of the three, who would you want?
That's a great question. I'm just going to defer to, let's wait till this window ends. I could say.
Oh, you're copying out here.
I'm not. The current squad, again, I think Fulham will survive. So I'd have to say Fulham. But if we get 2 or 3 players that Allardyce needs desperately, we have a core of very good players. And so, I would say Fulham's.
Okay.
Change, get these players that I think we need desperately.
Okay. Russell, over to you. I have a feeling you're going to say Brighton, but I'm going to ask you anyway.
It is a very good question. I agree with Andy. I think this is really tricky. Probably a mixture of some of each would be the ideal. But if you're talking about the squad as a wholesale, one or the other. I probably, again, it's purely because I'm talking about keeping Potter and keeping things together on that basis. I would say Brighton, the Brighton squad, because I think we have got a good squad we built up over time in the Prem. How much better, if at all, that is than you guys is debatable. I think really they've got it all still to prove, but it's really much of a muchness, isn't it? I mean, you guys have got some good players, as you just mentioned there. Would this manager with those players do better than this manager with these players? I'm not sure. It's a bit of a cop-out answer. I'll say Brighton, and it makes me sound like a bit of a I'll definitely stick with this manager and these guys. I am confident in them, so I'll say the Brighton players. There we go.
Okay. Emilio, I'm going to leave it to you. I have not asked you this, so you have 3 teams to choose from. They're players. Which one do you choose? I know we're a Fulham show. Be honest here. Would you take our players? Would you take West Brom's players? Would you take Brighton's players?
I think obviously it's quite clear. I think we've got a good enough squad to survive. To be honest, I think I looked at Brighton. I was always, obviously they were very much like a second team for me for family reasons and for personal reasons as well. But I was always quite proud of what Brighton achieved. Always wanted them to do well in the Premier League. Watching out for them every week. Like I said, they were my second team. Still, in a way, they still are my second team. For those reasons. But I was, we were all thinking, let's get Lewis Dunk. I think we've got a comparable defender. We've got Anderson, and our central defenders look very, very strong at the moment. So I wouldn't necessarily want to swap Lewis Dunk for some of our defenders. I don't know what's happening with your goalkeeper situation, Russell. Matt Ryan's gone to us, and that seems a little bit of a surprise move. Very surprised by that. So it's
that's a big one. He seems to have fallen out to some degree with Graham, which seems unlikely because he seems like a good lad, Brian, and he's done a lot of stuff with the fans, and he's a very sensible, mature sort of guy, and I think he's quite emotionally intelligent. So it seems an odd person to have fallen out with anyone. I'm not sure what's gone on behind the scenes, but certainly what it is, he wanted first team football, and with Sanchez breaking in, who's a really good young goalie, but he's obviously going to make mistakes and he's still learning. It's a tricky one. Graham Potter's clearly put his faith in him. He's given him a clear run of games, and that's what led to Ryan wanting to leave. It's a bit of a shame, and we have got a bit of a weakness there. If anything were to happen to Sanchez in terms of form, injuries, or anything else, I'm not that convinced with our backups at the moment. To be proved, they might do business. Who knows? But I'm a little bit worried. But in answer to the question, if I flipped it the other way, if I was a Fulham fan or a West Brom fan, I probably would say I'd stick with the squads I've got in any case, because I think it's part of the narrative. It's part of what's got you to where you are. It's part of what you can then take that narrative on. If you disrupt too much, I think if you suddenly literally plonked a whole new squad with any of those managers, they would have no time to really turn it round. I know to some degree you can say that's the case with Big Sam because he's in the precisely position just a few weeks ago, but it is what it is now, and he's already done some work with them. So I would, if I was a West Brom fan, I probably would stick with the same squad on the basis that he is where he is with them, and he's got the best chance he can have now of doing the business.
Yeah,
based on that.
The Brighton squad as well. There's some stalwarts in that team. Players who been there for several seasons. Like Solly March, reliable, dependable, but he's inconsistent as well. I'm not seeing Trossard being around. So some of these young players, some of these players have been around for a while. The fact that Dan Burn wasn't good enough for Fulham, but still getting Premier League games for Brighton now, is that testimony to Dan Burn maturing as a player, or is that because Brighton haven't got any other options? So, to be honest, I think the Brighton squad hasn't pushed on. I don't think there's been enough investment there. I think one of our, Chris the Jedi Martyr asking a question about whether there's enough investment at Brighton. I think I'd probably agree with him. I'm not sure I'd say the squad is better than ours. I think it's parity between the two squads. You've got some experience there in the likes of who's your forward, Danny Welbeck coming on board, Lallana. I think he's a former international, good experienced players. But are they the players who are going to turn your season around? I haven't seen them making a difference yet to your results.
Yeah, they're kind of bit part players, but mainly because of injuries and having to manage the fitness. But I think they'll play their part probably to a small degree if we do survive. But it is going to be about, as you said, those young players stepping up and taking the ball by the horn. Solly March has had a really good season, actually. He's stepped on. He's one of the success stories, I think, for Graham Potter this season. Oh, he's really come on under him. Dan Burns, enigma. Some people are pulling their hair out when he's in the team. Others don't mind. I think he does. He was like that when he was with Fulham. He was like that. Exactly. Of course, he was with you guys. Yeah. I mean, we played him as a left wing back in one or two scenarios, and he's been destroyed. And it was a makeshift situation, but with Traore and people like that,
you're going to have a 6'7" left wing back.
Yeah.
That's crazy. That's crazy, Russell. That's crazy.
I know. That was only for a period of a game, but still, it cost us. The Wolves game, it cost us for a while, and he adjusted it. But it's he's a strange one. He looks awkward, but he's not bad. But I also don't think he's quite the right fit. But he does seem to be a darling of Graham, so he's getting his fair share of game time.
Okay. Good stuff, guys. All right, to finish up the show, coming up next, we're going to go through predictions, and I'll put a little spin on the predictions for my guest and my co-host. Okay, guys, let's finish the show. And this is how we're going to do it. We're going to do it a little bit differently because I want to get your predictions for the matches coming up. But I'm going to start it this way. Russell, I'm going to go to you. What if Fulham lose to Brighton Hove Albion? Does that change your thoughts on the relegation battle?
Yeah, I think that's going to be a blow, actually, because as you guys have said, our home form has not been great. We keep drawing games to teams bottom half. If we suddenly get the win against you guys, it puts a big gap between our two teams. As I predicted, I think Newcastle's the team that can drop. You don't gain any of that ground on Newcastle either if you lose. For sure, maybe it gets worse. I would fear for you, I have to say, and I would love you guys to survive. But it is, every man for himself to start with until we're safe. But I think you're in trouble, actually, if you lose the game. If you draw it, it just keeps things ticking along. It just keeps things in range, doesn't it? Keeps us in there as well.
Right. And Andy, over to you, because I'm curious your view on this. You're only a point behind us.
Yeah.
So let's throw out the match for you tomorrow because I think it's going to be a bridge too far to beat Man City. But let's just say Fulham lose to Brighton. Does that change how you feel about Fulham? You think Fulham are going to survive, and I hope you're right. If they lose, does that change things?
Yeah, I think it has to. You've been dominating games. Emilio's been talking about it a lot. Creating chances. Not even on TV. You watch the Liverpool game. You're superb, but didn't finish didn't get the result you deserved. That can haunt you. That can really get to you. And the bottom line is, you've won as many games as we have.
I know.
And that shocks me. I've got to say. So I think you need to win. I think you have to convert the 1s to 3s. The 1-2 defeat, that will get in your head. And I think this is a massive game, a huge game. I totally think, it would turn things. This is a 6-pointer and plus, really.
Okay. Emilio, you and I talked about this off air. You've already said Fulham need to win both of these.
Yeah, absolutely.
So is this devastating? Again, we're going to go through predictions in just a second on the Brighton Hove Albion match. We'll also preview, and we'll give our predictions for the West Brom match too, because we got Andy on. But let's just focus on this one. What if Fulham lose? What does that do to Fulham?
I think it knocks that confidence, that belief amongst the fans, because there is an area of expectation. Again, the fans are divided here. We've got fans who don't think we've got enough quality. We can't score goals, therefore that's not enough to stay in division. Whereas there's the glass half full people like myself who believe the club can stay up. But of the two, obviously both are must-win games for us. A, we get closer to Brighton, and B, we push away from West Brom. But I don't think it's the end of the world if we get a draw and a win. I still think, would I prefer to beat Brighton than West Brom? I'd probably say yes. If I had to choose a game to win, not to lose, I'd prefer to beat Brighton and draw with West Brom if I had a choice of 4 points. Obviously, I want both 6 points out of 6. But I want to get closer to Brighton, get closer to Newcastle. The way to do that is don't let Brighton push away from us further. If we lose that game, that's 8 points. That's 3 games. That's a big, big gap to catch up with. West Brom, I think Newcastle will get sucked in at some point. Maybe
they will be.
Wolves. I think Wolves have got too much quality to get stuck in, and I think Burnley have got enough quality to win at home, and they've got that winning mentality. So for me, it's win against Brighton on Wednesday, confidence. We regain that confidence, that belief that we can go away from home, be the team around us. I've said it all along. There's enough games with teams around us for the rest of the season. We've got Newcastle at home, Sheffield United at home. We've got Leeds at home, Wolves at home. They're a winnable game. West Ham at home. I know West Ham are a good team. We've got you boys away from home in the next 4 or 5 days. So there's enough points there to be gained. But don't lose either, but get 4 points. And if we get 4 points, as a Fulham fan, I'll take that. But the first 6 before is not the end of the world. There's enough games there to recover.
Okay. Very good there, my friend. All right. Let's get to it. Russell, I'll give you first shot at this. Give me your prediction for this massive match. We're already talking about it. This is a huge match at your place. What is your prediction for Brighton Hove Albion versus Fulham? And I'll get Andy's prediction and Emilio's as well, and I'll share mine too.
It is a huge match, isn't it? I'm notoriously bad at getting these things right, so whatever I say, don't worry anyway. I've got a feeling because we won the game at Leeds and we game managed where we haven't done. That's been one of our issues when we've taken Leeds. We're one of the biggest conceders at Leeds in this division. I was encouraged by that, and obviously we got the win against Blackpool as well in the cup. It seems unfanciful to say that we'd win 3 games in a row in this season. I've got a feeling it's going to end up being another draw. I think it's going to be a 2-2 draw. I'm hoping, of course, that we win, but I'm going to say a 2-2 draw in the hope that it works in some kind of reverse jinx way. Okay.
Andy, give me your prediction for this match, which actually does affect your side too.
Yeah. That's a draw. It's 1-1. There's no doubt about that. Both teams can't afford to lose.
Yeah, it's huge.
Parker's not going to go there to attack and risk, I think, go gung-ho and try and win. Potter, to me, is not a manager that really, he's not a huge risk taker from what I've seen at Brighton. Play beautiful football, Russell. I mean, both your teams play great football. But I don't see many goals, and I see 1-1. But both teams need to win, but both teams certainly can't afford to lose.
It's interesting because Russell, before I go to Emil and get his prediction, it could be similar to the first time these teams played.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking, yeah. And we've rarely drawn as well. I think we've only had 6 draws.
Well, we canceled each other out in that match, if I remember correctly, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
So, sod's law, we get 2 of them this season.
Oh, boy. Okay, Emilio, I'm putting you on the spot. Give me your prediction.
I was going to say, I've been banging on about this since before Christmas. Judge us against the teams around.
Here it is.
Tottenham, Liverpool, Man United, etc. So sorry, Richard Tipple. Sorry, Russell. I fancy us to win 2-1. I agree with Brian Lake. I think I'm going to be bullish. I said it the last few weeks. Judge us on this game and the West Brom. We have to win this game. We can't go to Brighton and play conservative. Go out there, take the game to Brighton Hove Albion and make a statement. Scott Parker, you're going to, don't be too defensive here. You've got to be brave, be courageous, and go out there and win the game. Because I think we've got enough quality to do that. But it's got, like Andy says, neither team can afford to lose its game. So it's going to be 2 young managers, both with their philosophies, both with their style of footballs. It's going to be tough for both teams. But I think we've got enough there to win the game. I don't care about yesterday's woeful defeat against.
It doesn't matter. That doesn't matter, and I got
not worried about
lambasted by a few people because I said it doesn't matter. I mean, it doesn't matter in the large scheme of things when it comes to what Fulham need to do, and that's concentrate on the league. I wanted them to do well in the cup. They didn't. I shouldn't say it doesn't matter. It's not as important as these two matches coming up, Emilio. And I got to be honest with what was that?
So the other thing I worry about is potentially from our perspective, being a little bit concerned, is the fitness levels. Some of these players have come back from COVID.
Yeah.
We saw Lamina yesterday struggling a bit with pace. And
I think Anguissa has struggled, to be honest with you. We don't know if he's one of these players.
I just worry about the fitness level. So if there's any concern from my side, it's not about the ability to beat Brighton. It's more how fit are the players. And COVID, I think, will play an impact, to be honest.
Interesting.
But, just something to be mindful of. But I think we've got enough quality as a starting 11 to go there and actually get a result. But the game of Craven Cottage before Christmas, Russell, was a drab affair. Woeful.
It was.
It was terrible.
It was.
Wasn't great, was it?
It wasn't great.
No. And that's my fear, is that we're going to see that same type of match. So I don't normally do this, but because Emilio, well, I'm a positive person, but Emilio has spurred me on to give a similar prediction as Emilio. I don't normally go with Emilio. I'm going to go 2-1. I'm going the exact same with Emilio. He has given me confidence to go 2-1. Okay. We do have to just do one final match, and this will be Andy's match against us, and that's another huge match. So, Russell, I want to get your thoughts because this does impact your side as well. What are your thoughts about Fulham going on the road to the Hawthorns on Saturday to play West Brom? What's your prediction?
Yeah, I think this is going to sound a little boring, but I think it's going to be another draw. I think it's going to be possibly a 1-1 because I think, again, there's this sort of time in these big games, there's so much you want to have as a conclusive element, and invariably it never is. It'll just be something that will just drag things along a bit further, and there'll be nothing too conclusive in this game. I think it'll be a 1-1.
1-0.
I've got a nasty feeling something controversial is going to happen in that game as well.
No, I don't want
what.
that.
And that's going to really throw a cat into the kitchen. So.
That's the last thing I want, Russell. Please, no controversy. Please, Andy, over to you. Your prediction. Again, this is a huge match for both of our sides.
Well, 2 draws last season. You battered us this season. Well, you did. I mean, 2-0 could have been 4 or 5, but we're going to win. We are going to beat.
Okay.
That's shocked you. Every bit of logic from me saying how great Fulham are is going to go out the window this
morning. Now he's going with his side. Okay.
I think we have to win. I think we're more desperate than you are.
Okay.
Our windows the next 6 games. 4,
yeah, that's true.
4. And I just think you'll be that desperate enough. I think Allardyce will do enough nasty stuff on the training ground, set pieces. We scored, more goals, set pieces with Allardyce. We've done all year, all season with Bilic. Okay. So there's a difference. So I think we're going to beat you 2-1.
Okay. Oh. Emilio, over to you. We got 2-1 from Andy. We've got a draw from Russell, not me, the other Russell. And what is your prediction?
Yeah, well, when's the last time Fulham have won back-to-back Premier League games over even our first 13 years? It's not often we get back-to-back away wins. So, weirdly, I found the West Brom game to be a tougher one than the Brighton game. It's not a
really.
I think the Brighton game will be very, very even. Stevens, 2 similarly matched teams. I think the Sam Allardyce effect will be a problem for us on Saturday. I'd like to think we can go there and win, and I'm confident we can go there and win.
Yep.
But will Sam make it difficult for us? He's an experienced manager who gets their tactics best and right will have a say in that game. I think my heart is saying we'll win. My head is probably saying a 1-1 draw, but that's not good enough really. These are games we have got to go there and get a positive result. So I think we will win 2-1, but the reality is, I think it's probably going to be more likely to be a 1-1 draw. As long as we don't lose. If we pick up 4 points out of 6, it's not the end of the world, Fulham fan.
Okay. All right. Emilio, I'm going to disagree with you on the score, and I'm going to go with this person to score. It's going to go off of his head, off of his face. Ivan Cavallero to score and win 1-0. It's going to be some bizarre goal, and there could be controversy. So this is my controversy that Ivan Cavallero scores a goal. So I'm going with Fulham 1-0, and I'm Mr. Positive, so that's what I'm going to do. All right, guys, we went a little bit over, so I do want to wrap up the show. Russell, please tell everyone, and I didn't get a chance to mention this to start the show, and I'm sorry about this, about your podcast.
Yeah, so I'm co-host and founder of a podcast called Brighton Rock Podcast. The name really comes from there was classic film set in the area, sorry, and also Brighton Rock. That can mean two things aside from music. It could be rocking, as in rocking, American style rocking, or it could mean rocking, as in what we're doing at the moment in the table. But I think it seems a suitable one. But yeah, me and my co-host Peter, we've been doing it since Jan. It's a good kind of like conversational pub chat set up. We do it as audio, uploaded onto all the various platforms, and it's good fun. We enjoy it, and we're getting a growing listenership. And recommend it to anyone, Albion fans or the opposition view. If anybody fancies checking it out, Fulham, West Brom fans, we're fairly congenial, and we don't say anything too partisan, except about Burnley and Leeds. Can't stand them.
I'll join you.
And
I'll
Palace,
join you with
obviously.
both of those sides. I'm there with you, Russell. And Andy, I love having Andy on. Andy, you are just one of the best guys I know. Thank you so much for doing this with us tonight. I really appreciate it.
Well, it's great. I mean, it's a great bunch of lads. It's like being in a pub, I wish I could lift my glass and, a mutual thought. I wish we could all stay up, I think I think even if we're meeting the championship, it'll still be convivial. But it's a pleasure. It's a pleasure. And hopefully, as I say, we'll meet up again some stage in the future.
Absolutely.
We'll meet up the first chance we get when pubs are open in 2024.
That's the interesting thing. Fulham, West Brom, and Brighton. What do people have a bad word to say against each of these clubs? Don't know.
There's nothing really.
We're all
That's
family.
A good point.
Family
That's a good point by all of us.
Good values, good principles. Burnley, people don't love the Burnley for various reasons. Leeds United,
I can't stand Leeds United.
Newcastle, not many people. Newcastle United. So it's, to be honest, it's who says a bad thing about Fulham, Brighton, and West Brom? Very, very few people.
Yeah,
we've
that's
all got
actually a
great
good
away
point.
days, haven't we, as well?
Exactly.
Yeah. All right. Good stuff, guys. I do have to wrap this up because I've had you guys on for way too long, but I just want to thank my co-host Emilio for doing this and my special guest. Well, that's going to do it for this episode of Cottage Talk. For Russell, Andy, and Emilio, I'm Russ Goldman. Thank you for watching and listening to Cottage Talk.